everyone. I'm Dana Perino, along with Kaylee McEnany, Marie Harf, Jesse Waters, and Brian Kilmeade. It's 5 o'clock in New York City, and this is The Five. Get ready, everyone. It's the new normal. Right smack dab in the middle of an election season, the leading presidential candidate is off the trail and on trial. Donald Trump was back at the defense table listening to New York prosecutors lay out their case against him and grill their first witness, David Pecker, who is the ex-publisher of the National Enquirer. Bragg's team telling a 12-person jury that Trump tried to illegally influence the 2016 presidential election by preventing damaging stories about his personal life from becoming public, like covering up alleged hush money payments to adult film star Stormy Daniels, or as they put it, quote, "It was election fraud, pure and simple." Trump's lawyers countering that none of this was a crime and the case should have never been brought and is an attempt to kneecap Trump's current presidential campaign. President Trump defending himself after court was dismissed for the day.
This is a Biden witch hunt to keep me off the campaign trail. I should be in Georgia now. I should be in Florida now. I should be in a lot of different places right now campaigning, and I'm sitting here. And this will go on for a long time. It's very unfair. This is a case that nobody wanted to bring, including Alvin Bragg. It was just at the last minute they decided to do it. This has never happened before, where the state tries to insert itself in federal elections. Nobody's ever seen it.
The case is already overflowing with tabloid drama, and some of the media couldn't help themselves. They added to it.
What you have heard about it being kind of a dingy courtroom is real. He kind of slumped his shoulders and was kind of, I'm a slump-shouldered person. He was kind of slump-shouldered like this. He seems considerably older, and he seems annoyed, resigned, maybe angry.
We're a little bit jealous that you were there.
CNN reporters inside the courthouse have observed that Mr. Trump shut his eyes at one point, leaning back in his chair.
Trump is sitting alone at the defense table. It just reminds us of something we've been talking about all day, the powerlessness, right? He has to sit through these proceedings, often very dull, very procedural.
Okay, Jesse, let me start with you. The prosecution says this is election fraud, and they say pure and simple. Is it?
I call it pure evil. So they've taken away his freedom of speech, and now they've taken away his freedom of movement. So he has to sit there all week for 6 weeks, and if he says anything, they'll throw him in jail. If he leaves, they throw him in jail. That's crazy. I mean, they had more allowances for Khalid Sheikh Mohammed. I think they bought $1 million soccer field for the people in Gitmo. I don't know if Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was able to visit his son for his high school graduation, but it's similar. They're freezing him to death. They're putting him in a meat locker. He says it's like 45 degrees in there. And they're putting his life in danger, and they're telling the entire world, all the wackos, this is where the former president's going to be at this date, at this time, surrounded by high-rise buildings. And then they're seizing his bank accounts with these unconstitutional fines, unreasonable bond asks. It's disgusting. They say it's a fraud, but under existing election law, and I'm the only lawyer here at the table, candidates can't use campaign funds for an expense that would exist anyway, even if it benefits the campaign. So wait a second. I don't understand. If it's illegal to use campaign funds for personal issues, but it's also illegal to use personal funds for personal issues during a campaign, what was Donald Trump supposed to do? Either way, he's going to get prosecuted. That means it's just illegal for Donald Trump to be a candidate, is what they're saying. What was he supposed to do? He's going to use donor money to deal with an extortion attempt from a woman? Because it's pure extortion. This is a woman who's a porn star who owes Trump $600,000 already for frivolous lawsuits. And she was represented by a guy who's in prison for extortion, Michael Avenatti. And the star witness, the other lawyer, is a lying felon who's been in prison. This is the case. And Donald Trump keeps on making the point that this is being directed by Joe Biden, and the media keeps fact-checking the bejesus out of him. And then who gives the opening statement today? Joe Biden's former acting associate attorney general, Matthew Colangelo. So this case was a dead dog. The FEC didn't do anything to it. The U.S. attorney in New York didn't touch it. This guy parachutes in, number 3 guy at Biden's Justice Department, into Bragg's office, CPRs this thing to life. No one can even name the crime here. And then Joe Biden's not involved in this anyway. Joe Biden's number 3 justice official gave the opening statement at the trial. I'm going to fact check the fact checker.
And Kaylee, Andy McCarthy, of course, he's Fox News contributor and former U.S. prosecutor. He said the point of Bragg's dire framing of the case is to distract the jury's attention from how trivial the actual charges are.
Yeah, that's exactly right. As Andy McCarthy has said previously, this is the zombie case. It was the case no one wanted to take. You made the point. The FEC chairman doubted the validity of this case. SDNY didn't bring the case. Federal prosecutors didn't bring the case. Cy Vance didn't bring the case. All of a sudden, President Trump declares his candidacy for president, and pow, April of last year, all of a sudden, Alvin Bragg brings the case, screaming political, especially when you have the New York Times. They went and surveyed all of the cases out there. No friend of Donald Trump, the New York Times. New York state prosecutors have never before filed an election law case involving a federal campaign. Jim Trusty, pretty much historically unique, something you will never see again. But Trump, here is where he's advantaged. Biden was on the campaign trail today. He will be on the campaign trail tomorrow. I've watched several of the networks today. No one's talking about Joe Biden. He is driving the narrative. President Trump is. He is on defense when he's talking to reporters. He should also go on offense. Hold up the NBC polls. Say, check out page 14. I'm beating Biden on inflation, on the economy. Go through all of that. Force the reporters to see that the Joe Biden presidency is a failure.
He does command the attention, right? And so Biden went and did a big Earth Day event today in Virginia in a national park. And you're right, you don't see much of that. Marie, one of the things that Ruth Marcus from the Washington Post wrote, she's a liberal commentator and columnist. She said, why did this have to be the case that went first and getting all the attention? How are Democrats feeling about it?
I think Democrats, a lot of us agree with that if you look at the 91 criminal indictments Donald Trump is facing, I would much rather the first case be about efforts to overturn an election, right? Or the classified documents case when he attempted to obstruct justice and destroy classified documents. A lot of Democrats will tell you this isn't the perfect one. But he actually is, I mean, Jesse, to your point, he is given special treatment. He is under a gag order that any other defendant, if they violated repeatedly on Twitter, online, would have already been thrown in jail. He is under court orders that any other defendant would have, and he is violating them every single day. And so, Kaylee, I agree with you that he is getting a lot of the press attention. The open question in my mind is whether that will be positive for him. When all of the attention is about paying off a porn star, right? It's about all of the criminal indictments, him lying, him acting chaotic. I don't know at the end of the day if that press attention will help him when we know independent voters particularly don't like that chaos. They don't like the lying. They don't like the moral shortcomings and failures of Donald Trump. I actually think that that press attention might hurt him and help Biden in the end.
But if you do look at that NBC poll that came out over the weekend, Brian, President Trump is beating Biden by a lot in several of the key issues that matter to people, especially inflation, also mental capacity, immigration, crime.
Leadership.
Yeah.
Yes, and it's closing a little bit on the national poll. It's closing in some state polls. He still has the lead over in Michigan, dead heat in Wisconsin, dead heat in Pennsylvania. Other polls have him up in Pennsylvania. But just for the record, Kaylee is also a lawyer.
Oh,
like
good.
you, Jesse.
There's 2 of us.
Does that really help?
Convene. Check
Right.
those.
I would take her in court with
A couple
me.
of things.
Sorry, man.
Kaylee, the one thing that you said is interesting, that Joe Biden is on the trail, no one's following him. It's really a good thing for him because he is terrible on the stump. You saw, we'll play a little bit later, he gets asked about these questions about Colombia. He has really no idea what's happening. He said, did the Colombia president, should she be fired? He goes, I didn't know she was fired. So he's totally confused by everything, and he can't react to anything. So they're trying to keep him away. But you're right. And I don't think President Trump's been chaotic at all. He comes out by the bike racks a couple of times and gives a speech, gives some remarks. I'm really frustrated. And James Trusty told me over the weekend, too, almost no other defendant that he knows of would be under a gag order right now, period. A couple of things that happened today. The prosecution kept saying conspiracy over and over again, conspiracy to promote an election. So that is something how the law reads. He kept saying conspiracy, and the more Kerry, who was in there, thought about it, it's like there was really nothing there. The other thing that they kept saying is the defense kept saying an NDA there's nothing wrong with having an NDA. And every time he said that, every time the defense said that, Matt Colangelo would object, and they'd say sustained. And then he would say it again, which made her think that the judge really didn't have a problem with it. They're almost trying to break the momentum. They don't want the jury to hear over and over again that having an NDA is there's nothing wrong with it. There's no violation there. I think overall today, it just goes to show you that if you do have a dental problem, you can end a court case early. That's what happened today. An alternate juror leaves with a dentist problem, but Barron, I guess, only graduates from high school just one day, but we can't go to that. Maybe if the president says I have a wisdom tooth that's impacted, I think I can maybe see Barron, who would certainly stand out in the graduation line. So I think every day it's going to be interesting to see sketches and accounts of what happens inside the courtroom.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.